reading chapter 12, Iron Warrior Fort. This is part 2, by the way, which is called Making Amends. Oh, well, I've got a lot to make amends for, Zara in particular. Chapter 12 called Iron Warrior Fort. Zara and the Sprites and the Snowcats. That's Iron Warrior Fort, by the way. It's quite intimidating. Zara and the Sprites and the Snowcats and Wish and Bodkin were lying in the undergrowth in front of Iron Warrior Fort. They had a problem. Breaking out of a heavily armed warrior fort with 7 ditches and 13 watchtowers is hard enough, but breaking in is practically impossible. And it's made even harder if you are accompanied by a wizard with a witch snake and a band of Snowcats and Sprites. They could see the sentries on the battlements pacing nervously up, down, up, down, up, down, constantly straining to see out what was going on down there in the forest. They had abandoned the door in the corner of the forest where a flying jaw is rather conspicuous. And then Wish led them around to the stable entrance, which was where she had sneaked out in the first place. The doors there were always opening and closing, with hunting parties going out and returning. Zara got the Sprites to cover them with weather spells and invisibility spells so that they could steal up on the entrance without being seen. This will only work until we get inside the fort. Tiffenstorm's magic will not work in there, worried Tiffenstorm. There's too much iron. It's worrying everyone, said Zara confidently. I've broken into more forts than you've had hot dinners. It took a while for the little party of Snowcats, Sprites, Zara, Bodkin and Wish to manoeuvre themselves into position underneath the drawbridge. And then the plan worked beautifully at first. Zara and Wish and Bodkin and the Snowcats stole invisibly into the fort under the cloak of Ariel and Tiffenstorm's spells. It wasn't until they were a good way into the stable yard that it was clear that the spells were being affected by the sheer amount of iron surrounding them. To Zara's horror, he could see his feet below him, slowly becoming visible. Wish and Bodkin were even more obviously there already, although Bodkin was materialising the other way round, and for a second he was just a ghoulishly floating torso. But if they could just make it to the next building, thought Zara in a panic, maybe they could hide in the shadows there. Run, he whispered, run! Too late. A sentry had turned to see the bottom half of a gradually becoming visible Snowcat bounding across Queen Sycorax's stable yard. Magic! Roared the sentry. They were discovered. Wish had to make up an entirely new plan right there on the spot. Help! Cried Wish, who was now entirely visible. Help! 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 Over here! Wizard attack! Clever idea, Wish. The warrior guards turned, and there was Sycorax's weird little daughter pointing at a wizard with 3 furious Snowcats and a cloud of buzzing Sprites. Wizard attack! Cried the guards. Sound the alarm! The wizards don't often attack the warriors for obvious reasons, but warriors nonetheless are always ready for any kind of attack. Ready in a manner that you could almost call overkill. From all over came the thunderous sounds of clattering armour and the clanking of swords and the stamping of iron-clad feet as the soldiers of Queen Sycorax leapt into action. The attack is in the 3rd quarter! Backup is needed! Roared the guards, who had already surrounded them, swords and spears at the ready. Call out the Sprite catchers! Ready the Snowcat trappers! Alert the magic police! The shouting grew louder, and the household defender warriors poured from all directions into the stable yards. Oh, by the goggle-eyed eyes of the green-headed, green-toothed goblin, thought Zara. There's masses of them. I never thought there could be so many warriors in the world. Kingcat, Nike, don't you dare move, spat Zara, for he knew that the Snowcats were longing to launch themselves at the enemy, and he could see from the look in the warriors' eyes that if the Snowcats even made one bound in their direction, they would kill them instantly. Zara put his hand to his belt to take out the enchanted sword, but the sword was not there. He looked up. Wish was 10 yards away from him now, and she had been swooped up in the arms of an enormous warrior. The princess has been secured and made safe, roared the warrior, and one look into Wish's guilty eyes told Zara everything he needed to know. Zara was furious. Treachery! Betrayal! Wish had nicked that sword off him. He had fallen into the trap of trusting an enemy, and just when he had relaxed and let his hot guard down, thinking Wish was on his side, she had had the sheer cheek to steal it off him when he wasn't looking. Zara conveniently forgot, of course, that he himself had already done exactly the same thing only a couple of hours earlier. Wizards are very good at cursing. It was a habit that they had caught from the Druids, who used it as a way of attacking the enemy. So Tsar cursed now, and he cursed loud and long. "You treacherous, shrimpy burglar of a warrior," yelled Tsar. "My father was right about you guys. You're traitors and liars, and you wish I were as wicked as your repellent, magic-hunting murderer of a she-devil mother." "He insulted the Queen, and he's going for his weapon," cried the chief's guard. "Archers, eliminate him." The soldiers at the back of the warrior ranks raised their arms, their bows, all in time with each other, with enormous precision. They were so well trained, it would have been a pleasure to admire their timing, if they were not just about to kill you. "No!" shouted Wish from the arms of the warrior who's carrying her. "He's not armed. Don't you dare kill any of them, or I will tell my mother." Now, the warriors were not above killing an armed wizard. In fact, they did quite a lot when Sycorax wasn't looking, but they were, to a man and a woman, absolutely petrified of their queen. So reluctantly, the archers' arms wavered in a disappointed sort of way, but they did not let go of their arrows. They lowered their bows. "Secure the target!" shouted the chief guard. "Contain the rebellion! Launch the sprite catchers!" And when you've done that, the chief guard sighed and swallowed hard. "Somebody had better go and inform Her Majesty." The chief guard's deputy stepped forward. Do we have to?" "Of course we have to," barked the chief guard. "In fact, since you had the cheek to question my orders, I nominate you as the lucky person to go and tell her." Pew! The sprite catcher warriors fired bows that launched nets with little iron weights, attached them into the air towards the sprites. Out in the open air of the forest, the sprites could fly fleet as arrows, dodging and feinting with such quicksilver swiftness that they were just a blur of energy and light. But here the iron surrounding them acted like a drug on their flying skills. They bumbled about, slow and confused, shrieking madly, poor things, as they scrambled away, trying to get far from the scary iron, but instead plummeting to the ground, caught in the nets and gasping and straining for breath like stranded fish. All of them were caught, apart from the tiny, hairy fairy Bumbleboozle, who had crept into Wish's pocket as soon as disaster struck. The guards leapt forward, and Tsar was bound with chains so tightly that only his head was poking out. The snowcats were chained up too, and the wolves. Turnips in tin cans!" roared Tsar, bright red with anger. And that was how Sycorax saw him when she first swept into the stable yards a little time later to find a bundle of chains with a wizard boy's head poking out of it, screaming insults at her troops. That's Tsar screaming the insults. And the next chapter we meet Queen Sycorax, magnificent Queen Sycorax. Chapter 13 is called The Questioning of Queens. She's a very splendid, if scary, character.